I met a Gypsy.
Vortex is a little bit harder.
Yeah.
Vortex sponsors our team, but I've spent a lot of time with Get because of JGR.
Yeah.
JGR is actually super nice because it's actually got a digital RPM. What do you call it? It's like a tachometer.
They call it a GPA.
Yeah, or GPA.
Yeah.
It's like 1 through 9.
Yeah.
And each one is more delayed, up to a certain percent throttle, up to, let's say, 20%. Makes a big difference. So if you're on a super hard packed track and normally your baseline is 3, you can go to 7 and it's just like, versus yet. It's a huge fucking difference.
So what would you look for out of that? Like when you had that level of like option available to you?
It's just for me. So then it's a funny story. So I rode JGR Yamaha for a long time. And then I left JGR and I went to Factory Husky. And at JGR it was always like a fire breathing dragon, whole shots, this, that. But I didn't know any better. It ended up being kind of super hard to ride for 2 40-minute motos. Then I went to Husky and I'm like, man, things mellow, super power, super, the delivery was really good. And I'm like, man, I didn't need
all that power.
65 horsepower to just rip a start or whatever. It made it easier, don't get me wrong, but it made it easier on the Husky at 28 minutes.
Yeah.
And then from then, when I went to Canada and riding Yamahas again, I kind of, I learned and I kind of, changed things around a little bit. So I don't need at 250F, you need all the power you can get.
Yeah.
With 450, you just need something that's smooth and manageable that you can ride for 40 minutes as hard as possible.
Yeah.
Not 20 minutes.
Yeah. That's, I remember being at the test track when Dunge was doing his thing like 12, 13, 14. And you could barely hear his bike. Like he was barely on the throttle, but he was also barely on the brakes.
Yeah.
Like he just was like whoop, whoop, whoop. And there were corners where I'd talk to him after and he's like, I use the brakes twice on a Supercross track.
Yeah.
And it's just like, damn dude, like that is great. And then when you think of that level, like you don't need that much power.
Yeah, I think Dunge and Kenny riding styles are completely different, but I think overall bike mapping power is somewhat kind of similar.
Yeah.
They're not there's not many Eli's in the world, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think they're kind of look for the smoother power delivery.
Yeah. What was Chad like with that?
He just likes a smooth, like when he rode Yamaha, they did a bunch of detuning on it.
Yeah.
Like through the mapping because it was too fast. Like
Yeah.
you said, it like almost unrideable.
Yeah.
So our bike's pretty basic, honestly. A piston and a cam and some mapping, and it's really good to go.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I think. That's probably like one of the cool things about like 450s, but then even just the sport in general is like you could be like a crazy competitive privateer. I think that people definitely have it twisted, I think, from the outside in of like, you need to be on a factory team. You definitely, I guess you do to be on a 250 to then get to the point where you're like competitive on a 450.
Yeah. As long as you don't need to be on a factory team, but as long as the team that you're on has really good budget and unlimited parts. The unlimited parts is what comes down to. You can't stretch parts, especially on practice stuff. That's where shit fucking goes wrong.
Parts and good people.
Yeah, parts and good people are fucking priceless.
Yeah.
So, and when you get on teams, lower budget teams, and they start cutting corners with that sort of stuff,
that's when shit breaks and you get hurt.
Yeah.
So, but as far as like, on a factory team, even being JGR and Husky and whatever, like there's so much stuff that you can change that you can't with, instead of doing sprocket stuff, sprocket changes, you do primary gears. Like it's that, then your chassis length always stays the same. And it just makes it, that stuff makes a huge difference. So it makes it always feel like you're on the same fucking bike.
Is that one of the fun bits about being a factory rider though, like to get to work on that, or is it kind of just a punish?
Maybe for him to work on it, because I can't wrench on anything. Well, I do okay, but I like it because I never had that stuff growing up as a kid. So when I finally got to it when I was 25, I kind of understood it a little bit more. When you get it when you're 18, you're fucking young and dumb.
You don't know any different.
But after you kind of been through it all and then you understand like what that part actually does, you can kind of look for it out on the track. It makes a big difference. So,
Yeah, I mean, it's just, to me, I just think that nerd factor, like, it's probably like an underappreciated or like an leverage part of the sport in a way too. Like we don't really talk about. I mean, we got the science of Supercross.
Yeah.
They don't show you anything good on there.
Yeah, but like I feel like we don't really know that much about, the stuff that kind of does go on.
Yeah, like on a 450, you'll have a longer first gear. Like you can JB likes a longer first gear because, on a 450 in a main event, dude, you're cutting down super tight in corners and it's like an outdoor national out there. Yeah. And you need first gear to be able to seat bounce 3 in. On a 250F, on the Suzukis, we had a longer second gear just to give us that extra little bit coming out of corners. So it's kind of a give or take. You don't get that on a production-based model, or on a normal team or a regular team.
Yeah.
But hopefully that stuff eventually works its way down the pipeline to the new YZ450. Yeah. That's the whole point of it. So.
Yeah. It's all those little things that you don't ever see or hear about that make the factory where you have just so many more options.
What's like the coolest shit that went on a bike that you wrenched on or you rode?
Fuck, I think it's all pretty badass. I mean, we did a dual injection on the YZ450.
Yeah.
It made a thing like I mean,
some of this stuff is like you wouldn't believe how like it rigged up it is just to test it.
Really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like we rigged some shit at JGR to make just to try it.
Yeah, just the how do you even call it, to read the shock when it would the data for the shock, the data for the forks, and just like being able to pull up and see that data on a screen, and you're like, holy fuck. And then you bring that data, like Johnny Oler, who's our suspension guy for a long time, and you bring it to the NASCAR side of things, and they've never seen that sort of velocity on forks and shocks before.
Really?
Because their stuff only moves this much. Our stuff is moving this much at a serious rate, you know?
Like when you're slamming into a face of the jump in Supercross, like the speeds are unbelievable.
Like it's kind of wild. That's why our sport is fucking insane on how it is. Like people don't even register that, you know, so it's pretty cool. But I think that sort of stuff, I geek out on all the data stuff, you know what I mean? Like I think that's pretty badass to do. So
like when you slow-mo some of the videos we take at a test track and you see how much like the forks flex, clamps flex,
well,
like,
just from filming and stuff, you know, like you can see it, like swing arms going this way, subframes going the other way, like, dude, it's insane. And then somehow the chain stays straight. It's like, dude, what?
If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe. And to listen to the full 3-hour podcast, search Gypsy Tales in your favorite podcast platform or click the link in the description below. Gypsy Gang.